Hello and welcome. My name is Ty Hubbard and I'm a breathwork facilitator. And this video is being recorded as an introduction to conscious connected breath. Most likely you've signed up for a virtual breathwork session, or perhaps are just coming across this video as an introduction to breathwork journeying. So my intention is to provide a little bit of context and background to support you in your journey, to demonstrate the technique that we will be engaging for this process, and to offer a few insights that can support your deepest journey possible. So to begin, in terms of finding a space to do this work, I highly recommend finding the most private, quiet space in your home. And that's just to really ensure that you feel kind of protected and safe, to drop into a pretty deep state of experience and to allow any emotional movement should that show up for you. So just a place where you don't feel like anyone will walk in, there won't be any disruptions, and you can be fully present to drop into a pretty expanded and deep process. You might want to have any sacred items with you, any talisman, or just items that for you help you connect to spirit. So you can have those in the room or set up an altar. Functionally, in terms of your comfort, you're going to be reclined for generally about 60 minutes in these sessions. So you can either lay on a bed, you can lay on a couch, you can lay on the ground, maybe with a yoga mat and a few layers of blankets on top of that. I recommend a thin pillow underneath your head to support and just give a little cushion, as it is a long time that you'll be laying down. You might want to have a rolled towel, or if you have a yoga bolster, that can be helpful to put under your knees to support your low back and sacrum. You'll want to wear comfortable clothing. You don't want any tight restriction like tight jeans or tight bra strap or anything like that, so that you can breathe fully and deeply. You'll also want to make sure you have either layered clothing and definitely a blanket or two nearby, as the body temperature can fluctuate quite a bit in this work. So if you get cold, you want to make sure that you have blankets that you can put on top of you to keep you warm in this process. In terms of audio, so for these virtual breathwork sessions, we'll be doing them over Zoom. Login information will be sent to you. And if possible, during the session, if you feel comfortable keeping your camera on and pointing it as you're laying down, finding a position for your laptop or your phone, so that I can, as a facilitator, see pretty much from your pelvis up to your head. That way I can watch the breathing pattern and be able to tune in and do some energetic remote work with you as I'm watching what's happening in your body and in your field. I can kind of place myself there and do some work that's actually pretty amazing and profound, that we can do this type of remote work. So that would assist me in that process. But otherwise, you're welcome to have your camera turned off. The breathing technique that we engage in this conscious kind of connected process is unique. I'm also a yoga teacher and a pranayama teacher, and there's so many different methods and breathwork modalities that help bring awareness to the breath and help optimize the breath, reduce anxiety, support symptoms of asthma, and just a myriad of conditions, right? The technique that we're using in this practice is specific to catalyzing an experience both in the body and opening into transpersonal states of awareness. And in this technique, we are breathing through the mouth generally. So you're going to be reclined and your mouth will be nice and wide with a relaxed jaw. So as you're reclined, you might have the mouth somewhere in this setting, like and there's many reasons, like day-to-day breathing, that we want to be breathing through our nose, right? So for just general day-to-day optimal well-being, that's the way to go. But again, for this specific process, we are breathing through the mouth. Nice wide open jaw. And the exhale out. So the technique, there's two breath patterns that I'd like to share. And one is that two-part breath that you just saw me do. The first part of the inhalation is drawn a little bit more into this kind of area of your belly and your abdomen. And the second part of the breath is drawn more into the heart center, kind of like the full 360 of the heart. You might even feel it lift into the upper kind of lobes of your lungs and up and underneath the collarbones. And then the exhale is the passive part of this breath. So again, the inhalation is the more active, dynamic. There's some muscular engagement. And then the exhale just drops. The belly just drops and relaxes. That can be a little bit tricky to get the hang of. Normally when we take a deeper, fuller inhale, we really want to blow the exhale out. You'll feel that blowing with muscular engagement. Your abdominals contract, maybe you curl a little bit. And in this process, as much as possible, we just want the body to soften and relax on that exhale. And there's different reasons for this, both physiological and kind of psychospiritual. In that relaxed exhale, we can really feel ourselves kind of surrendering to nature, to the earth below, and there is a relaxation in the body. And it's, I kind of see it like knots of tension. If we're pulling the ends of that knot too tightly on either end, we just pull a knot tighter. But if there's some softness and some looseness in those fibers and threads, a little more can actually unwind. So by relaxing on that exhale, we soften the body. And then the inhalation, that awareness and that breath, the energy that comes on the inhalation can more easily kind of penetrate the deepest aspects of our body and our psyche. And then also on more of a physiological note, when we blow the exhale out, we're actually kicking out quite a bit of CO2. Not the end of the world in the duration that we're breathing and in this context, but sometimes there can be kind of hypoxic symptoms in the body. You might feel what's called tetany, a little muscular cramping in the hands, that type of thing. Calcium levels drop a bit. And so again, not the end of the world in this duration that we're breathing, but we can really mitigate kind of that physiological effect by just relaxing the exhale. So there won't be much sound on the exhale. The belly will just be softening and relaxing. So that's the breath in its simplest form, that's the 2-part inhalation and the 1 exhale. And then also in this work, I encourage you to experiment with just a single inhalation. So this would be your back body just stay soft and relaxed into the earth. And the inhalation is like the full circumference of your belly and your chest and this mid-band around your diaphragm, lifting in unison. So it would just be a single inhalation in. Somewhere in that ballpark. And in this way, we can mimic the kind of more natural tide of breath. The belly, the mid-band around your diaphragm, your chest swell, and then the exhale falls. I like to start with the 2-part breath, as we get in, I find that there's a real nice rhythm and cadence that can be found in that 2-part, where I, as the breather and the doer, can kind of fall and recede back, and the breath can breathe me. I really like to end with that single inhalation, that just full circumference swell of breath, as it just feels, again, kind of like the natural tide of breath. The tide comes in and the tide goes out. And that's a really nice place when I'm breathing, and what I've heard back from many people to conclude your session, at least the second half, when the music starts to become a little bit more relaxed and mellow and ethereal. So you might try moving into that single inhalation. And just before I continue on, I just want to take a brief pause and just give an opportunity to practice that breath just very briefly. I have a drum here, and I'm just going to use it to kind of find a cadence. This kind of steady cadence can be helpful to kind of fall into a rhythm. Sometimes in like shamanic journeying, there's a drum beat, and that helps. That consistency and that steady cadence can kind of help us open into more expanded states when there's not a lot of variety and variation. It can also help our bodies find patterns that might be constriction and contraction patterns that might be holding. And so by just relaxing the body and kind of staying with a continuity of breath, we can start to unwind some things that might be holding. So I'm going to grab with a drum here, And we're going to do the 2-part breath together. So again, this is a, so I'll drum and go ahead and try the breath. So let's all take an inhale, exhale it out, and then belly, chest, out. Beautiful. That's it. And you can experiment if you feel like at times you want to open up that, open the breath a little bit more quickly. And energy's moving through and you want to ride that wave and let it kind of roll through you with a little bit more vigor, feel free to do that. If there's times where you find you're kind of hovering, there's insights coming through, something's happening in your experience that you just want to track with more attuned awareness and the breath sort of hovers in suspense, that's fine too. So you can kind of, this is a dance, there's no right or wrong, you can't do it wrong. We just want to stay out of a hyperventilating pattern. So hyperventilating would look more like something like that, or we start to pick up and we get ahead of ourselves. So more than anything, I want you to stay connected to your body. If it helps you to put a hand on your chest, a hand on your belly, and if things start to ramp up or amp up that feel difficult to stay with, slow down your breath. Stay with your body and ride that edge. We don't want to overwhelm the system anyway. So if it ever feels like too much, it is. And we just want to back off, slow down the breath, maybe even return the breath to your nostrils for a little while. You can always kind of ease that gas pedal off. And again, on the flip side, if you feel like moving your body, breathing more vigorously and deeply, rolling your shoulders, even sitting up and growling, anything like that, we want that energy to move through and roll through in an organic way without stopping it from our mind and our conditioning in that way. So that's the breath technique. Again, quite simple. You really want to be aware of your mouth and jaw relaxed. If at times through the breathing practice you want to stretch your jaw, slide it side to side. If you want to roll your head in figure eights and release any layers of tension that you might feel building. So feel free to move your body. Otherwise, you can just lay on the ground, have your back soft and broad against the earth like a river plain and a riverbed that's quite wide and vast. And then the breath like the wind just rolling through the canyon of your body. So that's the breath technique that we engage in this specific practice and modality. Quite simple in practice, and it can be quite strong in effect. So I'd like to just give a little bit of context for some of the things that might show up in your experience. And I don't want to say too much because each journey is unique, and we just open awareness, open up the breath, and allow whatever surfaces to arise. But there are some things to be aware of that can, so if it shows up in your experience, you can know that it's a common part of this process and not to be alarmed, and just some indication of the terrain of this type of expanded state journey. So physically, as you're breathing in this way, you might start to feel a lot of energy moving through your body. Sometimes people describe this as like electricity. It's like your whole energetic grid can come online. And that energy can show up as like buzzing in the hands, feeling like currents or voltage through the body. Sometimes it can feel like there's areas that get really dense and tight, or that are even kind of offline in your awareness. So there's different energetic patterns and movement in that way. If you happen to get what I refer to as tetany, some of that muscular cramping, it often shows up in the hands. You might feel like a claw hand. Some people are more prone to getting this than others. There's been some correlation to mineral levels and calcium levels. But if it does show up, really check in with that exhalation and make sure that it's relaxed, and maybe even just ease off the breath altogether. You can also move your shoulders, you can roll your wrists to help unwind some of that. And it should back off and subside rather quickly. So you might feel energy moving. You might feel body temperature change. You might get hot and cold. And there might be some energetic discharge. So as the nervous system does a bit of a offloading for all the accumulated tension, that can show up in different ways. Your body might want to shake a little bit. You might have vibration in a certain place in your body. Maybe the right arm wants to move. You might cry. There might be some emotional movement. So there might be tears that flow. There might be tears of joy that flow as well. You might yawn at times. You might find some laughter. You might feel the body vibrating a bit. So that can all be felt in the physical experience. Your mind, surely at some point you might feel that, you kind of have the mental narration going, oh, I'm here in the room, this isn't working, I feel frustrated, some of that. And as much as possible, again, totally normal for the mind to do, but as much as possible, to give yourself to the breath, to commit to the process and to this container of support. You're resting on the earth, and you just commit to that inhale and relaxing on the exhale, and stay present with that and trust that it will take you where you need to go. And if resistance shows up, you just notice it. You note it and come back to the breath. You don't need to hold a meditative state in any way. There's no specific object of focus besides maybe the breath. More than anything, we just want to be an open screen of awareness. And oftentimes, insights or visions will come through. Sometimes people see certain, they're taken to a certain place in nature, or there might be visions of animals or even loved ones or people in your life, or pets who have crossed over. There might just be insights and visions that come into to the screen of your awareness. And we just see what's there to be shown. You can ask questions. Is there anything you want me to see here? Anything you want me to do? Anything I should know? And we just allow whatever insights and transmissions to come. If you do notice that you're kind of more in a mental ruminating, thinking about your to-do list or something like that, it's most likely that you're not breathing very deeply and you're kind of disassociated from the body a bit. So in that case, I encourage you to feel the body, maybe imagine pressure on the soles of your feet, maybe put one hand on your chest and one hand on your body to feel the anchor and connection, and just recommit to the breath in that way. There's a quote, Pema Chodron says something along the lines of, we are the sky and everything else is the weather, or something to that effect. And in a similar way, we allow ourselves to be the space and the context of awareness in which all sorts of phenomena can arise. So grief might roll through, bliss and joy, resistance, heart opening. All of those experiences can show up in this context of experience. And we don't need to make a story about it. We don't need to try to hold on to it. We just allow it to show up, to feel it deeply. And when it shifts, it shifts. So if anything, in this breathwork process, you can hold that state of witnessing awareness, allow discomfort to move through the body. Maybe there's heat, maybe a wave of nausea comes up, and we just let it be. There might be a little fear that shows up as we go into kind of an altered state, and when the body is kind of discharging energetically, a little bit of alarm can show up. So again, you can feel the safety of the ground beneath you. You can feel my presence and support in holding this container, and just knowing that there'll be some layers that start to surface as they move that do have a little bit of that energetic quality. So to know that that is all held within a field of love and benevolence. But again, if we don't want to overwhelm the system. So if you touch into something where you can't stay with the breath and you feel like you're contracting around it, please do back off and just return to a more gentle breath through the nose. There's no need, and it's not ultimately productive to push too hard and too fast, right? Seeing if there's any other notes here. One other thing to mention that can be helpful as you go into this type of process, oftentimes we come in and we want to break through something, right? So just being aware of that one who's striving towards a breakthrough or an experience. And I would encourage you to just stay with the breath, relax those exhales. And sometimes there's sometimes there's a really huge breakthrough. Yeah, I almost see it like a river system, right? And there's logs that create a dam. And sometimes there's a big release and a lot of energetic movement happens. So sometimes that will be your experience. And sometimes it will be what feels like more mild. But please don't underestimate the work that's being done, releasing, unwinding non-productive patterns, taking one log off at a time. This is a cumulative process, and just your awareness, it's like the smallest amount of light gets through the crack and it penetrates deeply. So please don't underestimate that just by opening up your breath and bringing that light of awareness into the body through your intention and sincerity of heart, is really doing just profoundly beautiful work. So please hold your experience and your process in that way. And then just in closing, a few other things that can be helpful as you go into an expanded state journey like this, and a somatic experience like this. I found that making sound and what we call toning is really helpful. So if you're doing a group process with my facilitation, there'll be moments for the group and in person when I'm working with you individually where I invite everyone to make some sound together. But at any time as you're breathing, I encourage you to open your mouth and just make a fairly loud toning sound. Two vowel sounds that can be really helpful are an ah, like father. So you would just inhale and then ah, and just let it go with a nice wide jaw coming from the belly. You can also make an A sound like play. This is the vibration you might feel a little more in your heart. So like a A, and then let it keep going and ride out. And there might be periods through the journey where just making that sound can help get things flowing, get things moving, opening things up, and taking you a little bit more out of the headspace and into the full journeyscape. So do use sound. One other thing that I found very helpful over the years is to remind people that you can use your own hands. So you'll have a lot of energy moving through, and your arms and your hands are connecting, like all the meridians are from the heart and pericardium. And so it's this connection of your own resource and your own sincerity, your own energy of love and awareness that's coming through your hands, and you can put that on places in your body. So you might put a little pressure on your heart and just connect and breathe into it with a little bit of weight there, feeling like you can lift into your hands. If you feel there's a place in your body that feels tight or stuck, you might do a little palpation. You might just let your hands rest there and breathe with awareness. You might kind of come above your pubic bone and into the right on the low belly and breathe, and just bring awareness and breath there with your own hands. So you can do that as well. And then just not over efforting, again, just really allowing that exhale to relax. The breath, even though it's active and dynamic, we don't need to go to 100% lung capacity, maybe 80%, somewhere in that ballpark. More than anything, we just want a fullness of breath, a relaxed exhale, and just continue that in a looped circuit. So that's the main thing there. I think that's it for an introduction to this process. I've been facilitating this work since 2013 and, teaching yoga and doing shamanic healing work prior to that. And I find this work just absolutely beautiful and effective. You know, when I was doing shamanic work, which is beautiful, beautiful work, you know, there was some, like I was working as an intermediary to some extent, retrieving insight, bringing energy, you know, transmitting, you know, doing soul retrievals or doing extractions and that type of thing. And when I discovered breath work, I really found this as, you know, the breath is yours. It's yours. You can use this anytime. You're having your own, you're doing your own unwinding, you're receiving your own transmissions from your own sense of inner truth and your own guiding light. And that's where I feel the deep integration work happens. And I continue to offer this work because it seems to be so, so helpful to people on so many levels, to help people kind of find their legs and their ground and their resource and their truth as they're navigating just difficult experiences in life. It's a beautiful way to just connect, to access that which is beyond, kind of lives beyond our conscious awareness and thinking mind. It's a deep reach into the psyche and the wisdom that lives in a place that's beyond our conceptual reach. It's also just a profound somatic healing tool. I've had many people who have, you know, experienced or done many, many years of psychotherapy, which again is such a helpful tool and practice to bring awareness and reflection to your experience. And yet this practice seems to be able to get into the cellular memory and what's held in the body that is beyond, again, our conscious reach and our narrative and our conceptual understanding. So unwind some of that trauma, unwind some of that tension that's held in our cellular memory, and even perhaps transgenerationally. So for those reasons, you know, breath work, it's such a profound holistic support for our somatic, just releasing energy, discharging stress and tension, being able to find a more relaxed, grounded being, and in doing so, have a little more clarity and have a little bit more capacity to meet the experiences of life um, with space and capacity to meet them without that energetic triggering kind of old stuff and tightening our bodies even more. So I'm so glad you found your way to this practice, and I am absolutely honored to be your guide and facilitator in this work. So know that whether you're engaging this on your own, you know, this connection is here, and I offer my support, my compassion, and the safety and love, really, as you engage in this path and process of remembering and reconnection and shedding and unwinding and integration. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to sharing a breathwork journey with you soon. All right, be well, take good care.